conferences, piles of flyers, getting stuck on endless email lists, never-ending calls. There's an easier way to sort through and find the best school fundraisers. School Zone Podcast proudly presents the 10 top school fundraising ideas for 2017, a guide of top fundraising companies handpicked from the best podcasts. As an added bonus, it lists 5 awesome resource companies that would add tremendous value to your school and students. A guide to 10 top fundraising companies and 5 resource companies. And we're giving the guide away for free. That's right, for free. Ready to simplify the search? Download the free guide at schoolzonepodcast.com. Welcome to School Zone School Fundraising Ideas Podcast. We interview top fundraising and resource companies to help you find a solution to your next school fundraising or school resource need. Are you ready to simplify the search? Now, here's your host, Matt Miller.
Hey, School Zone Podcast listeners, Matt coming at you from sunny Stephenville, Texas, out here in EIEIO, as we call it. We've got a young lady from Ohio, I believe, on the line, the Cleveland area, actually, Christina Hidek. I've become familiar with Christina and at least part of what she's doing here over the last few months. She allowed me as a guy to enter her PTA and PTA Mom Facebook group. I wonder what was going through her head at that point. But anyway, and so I've gotten a chance to kind of be in that group and participate a little bit and learn a lot as far as some of the struggles and challenges and that type of thing that school volunteers all across the country are going through. And about a month or so ago, I was like, man, I need to get Christina on the show and have her enter the school zone, share a little bit of her backstory as a volunteer and what she's doing with the Facebook group, etc. So I reached out and she said yes. And here we are on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon, ready to talk. So Christina, thank you very much for joining us in the School Zone. Take a minute to introduce yourself and give a little background on you.
Well, Matt, thank you so much. I'm Christina Hidek. I am a recovering attorney and PTA nerd. So I'm from Cleveland, but I actually I grew up in Cleveland Heights, a pretty liberal little suburb on the east side of Cleveland. And then for college, I went to the University of Kentucky. So I got down past I think that's past the Mason-Dixon line, or pretty close. It was the South, let me say, just to go from very liberal Cleveland Heights to Lexington, Kentucky was enough of a culture shock for this woman. And I loved my time down there, and then returned back to the Cleveland area law school. I had never intended it to happen like that, but that's just sometimes how the cookie crumbles. So I worked as a litigation attorney for about 5 years before having my first child, and then after that I continued doing work like part-time. And then as I had my second kid, we knew we were done at 2 because I had 2 boys, and I did every person I know who's rolled the dice to try and get a girl for kid number 3 has come up with another boy. And so I just was like, I love my friends, but they all seem to be a little crazy with 3 boys. And so I wanted to maintain my sanity. And I just said, we're good. We're good. And then I looked at what I was going to do for like the next stage of my life, because being a litigation attorney was not happening for me. Like I could do it, but the rigors of that profession, I just wouldn't have been able to see my kids, and that's not why I had them. So yeah, that's a little bit, I guess, pre-business.
So you said your boys, when we talked a minute ago before coming on air, are 9 and 12. So, and you've been volunteering with schools here for quite some time now.
And maybe I should tell you like why I am such a nerd, because I can geek out on a whole lot of things, but I am pretty passionate about PTO stuff. Which kind of makes sense of why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. The number one reason I got involved is because in the Cleveland area, we have fantastic medical community. Like, I think a lot of people have heard of the Cleveland Clinic, especially because there's Cleveland Clinic in Miami and Cleveland Clinic in like Middle East countries too. But we have also university hospitals, and so a lot of or internships, and then they get placed jobs and they relocate. So when I had kids, it was a big adjustment. I was coming from working full time in a law firm, which is not family friendly and not kid friendly, and to now I was here at home with these kids, and I'm like, I need some people to hang out with, and so I started going to like baby and me groups and like parent groups, and I met people, but then their husbands were doctors or they themselves were doctors. And then, so now I have friends all over the place, all throughout the country, which is fantastic. But like on a day-to-day basis, I didn't have peeps to hang out with. And so, I talked with other people, because this is a big issue when you go from working as a professional to being at home. That transition can be like super rough. And, it was hard for me to have all of my friends move away. And so that's exactly why I got involved with PTA stuff, because my mom was like, honey, you just need to get involved with the school and you'll find people like-minded. And I was like, okay. And I didn't know it at the time, but I've really come to like fully own it, that I am such a volunteeraholic, kind of a problem. But it really shouldn't have surprised anybody that I got involved right away. So the first year, like I think I missed a couple meetings, because that very first year of my son's kindergarten, I had I think Ryan, who's now 9, was 1. So it's been 8 years. But by the end of the year, I was president for the following year. So it took like no time at all. And it's just, it's been super, like, it's been hard. Like, kid nobody. Like, some of this stuff is hard, but that's because people make it unnecessarily hard for you sometimes. And you have to I know you wanted to talk about some of the challenges, so we can dive into that later, but it's overall been an awesome experience.
So talk a little bit about, on the school zone, we spend a lot of time, especially with companies that do fundraising and that kind of thing. Because that's where I got started 10 years ago with my fundraising company, School Spirit Vending. And we found out that there was a huge need for a place where companies could come on and go deeper than just a 5-minute trade show pitch, so that people could get to know them and believe in what they do and their mission and how they do it, instead of, okay, you get 25% or 50% of the revenue sales, and here's the little sheet. And it's just, so much of it is so surface because of the way we are today. So it's been great to have companies on so that folks can get more of the backstory and learn more about it. So from the fundraising side of things, what are some of the things that you've loved doing over the years? What are some of the things that didn't work out so well? Talk a little bit from that angle of things to begin with.
So I know this will shock you not at all, but I've actually been fundraiser chair. Like, that was my job one year. And I think the things that I haven't liked, well, we'll start with the negative, and then we'll end on like a positive note. Because I not everything I did when I was in charge of fundraising was like fantastic, but I did a pretty good job. And I think it, especially in the last couple of years, we had to like ride out through the recession. And so one thing that I was really frustrated about in my own district. So we're a PTA in a public school district that is pretty diverse, racially, culturally, ethnically, financially, all that goodness. We have all sorts of diverseness. So you really have to be in tune with what families want and what they don't want, and what they can afford and what they can't afford. Like, that's certainly a consideration. 4 of the 7 buildings are Title I. Okay, so lower income, but not everybody. But what the mistake that the schools did last year, because it was for families who had more than 1 children, like or more than 1 child. What they did last year was fundraisers were the same over 2 years for the upper elementary school and the lower elementary school, like the exact same companies. So it's the exact same stuff. This helps me not, because I want different things. And um, personally, I am always, and it's gotten better, but I am tree hugger and very concerned about what's going into my children's bodies. So like I was way ahead of the trans fat thing. Like, well, just when it was like early, I was like, ooh, I know what those are. And I was avoiding them like the plague. And different family members were like, what is your problem? Just eat the whatever. And I'm like, no, that's like garbage. So very particular. So I don't really care for the food-based ones. And like I said, now it's like, for the first time ever, I think I bought prepared cookie dough. Didn't have like a ton of junk in it. It probably has stuff that has not yet been identified as junk, but whatever. So everything at one point will be, junkety junks, as I like to call it. So, but those things have been frustrating to me. So, and I really don't like when schools do the same thing over and over, even if they're not working, because that's like all they know how to do. So this year is a new change for me, because we finally graduated out of the lower elementary schools in my family. And now, so we're in the upper elementary school and also junior high. So it's like the big time. And I don't know what they're doing this year. I just got an email actually before we jumped on that they're doing like a no fundraiser. But we haven't had like a meeting.
So what are some of the things over the years, you guys, the money that you've raised has gone towards? Because that always really intrigues me, where some of the funds have gone and what some of the basic needs are that most of us would just think, oh, well, those are taken care of. They've got to be.
Yeah, one thing that was a huge focus in our district, because one of the reasons why I love this, love our district, is that there are some communities that are in the surrounding areas that will tell parents, like on the download, like, we really can't service your child. Like, you need to go to like the private school that deals with the kids that are, have autism. Whereas our district doesn't say that. They like actually service them. So in the lower elementary school, we did a lot for, we did mini grants for the teachers, and they would just like say, I want $1,000 for this, or I would want, different money. And so we would fund that two ways. One, the PTA would fundraise for that. And so part of the money would go in that way. And the other way that was funded was through box tops. So we would say, the more box tops you send in, the more money we can give to the teachers. And so for quite a number of years, we were fully funding requests for iPad for that the department that deals with the spectrum kids, even like stuff for like sensory, the sensory things that they need, like the weighted blankets or there was some kind of weighted jacket thing that she thought would help. And it was always so lovely to tell the one specialist that we were going to fully grant it. And I would always make sure to tell her in person, because she would always start crying, and it made me feel so awesome. And I could see how genuine, how like this was like super important to her. And we're like, well, of course we would want this for you, because my whole philosophy with the PTA stuff is I don't do it for me. I do it for my kids, but I also do it for other people's kids, because and I also do it for the teachers, because happy teachers make for happy children, and that makes for happy parents. So it's like full circle. And it's like, of course I want to make the teachers' lives easier. So like at the upper elementary school, for example, I got my husband finally involved with PTA because we needed a treasurer. And so I was like trying to figure it all out, because we just didn't have like a whole lot of volunteers. And I was like, husband, you be treasurer. And he's like, fine. But because again, remember, I'm not good with math, so that would not have been good, but I'm good with membership, so I do membership at that school. Well, he went in to make copies one night, and it was the copier that we use is on the first floor in the fourth grade teachers lounge, and they had this refrigerator, which has been trying to die for like, I don't know, 3 years. It sounded like really horrible. My husband came back into the room after making copies. He goes, "What is going on with that refrigerator? Like, I can't believe they still have this thing." He's like, "Can't we get a new one?" And I was like, "I don't know. Do we have money for that?" And so we talked about it as a PTA. And so last year we said, "Oh yeah, well, let's spend like $300 on a new fridge or a new to us fridge because it'll be better than what they have." And in our area, the Sears was closing and JCPenney's was closing at this one mall, and another appliance store. So we're like, we'll probably be able to get a deal from someplace. So in fact, my husband just got, I don't even know how much he paid, but a couple $100 and installed Friday. And the teachers were like hugging him when he was installing it. And then he even tried to hook up the ice and the water. And the one teacher was like, she put a picture on Class Dojo, because that's the new thing at the school that they're having all of the teachers do and administrators. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the little things. Like, this is so wonderful." So those are kind of some of the smaller things that we've done. But the bigger projects, well, we didn't actually pay for this in the end because we had such a great idea that the superintendent was like, "Every school needs this." And so the district funded it. And we're like, "Well, if you're going to pay for it for the other schools, can't you pay for it for ours too?" And that is a marquee sign outside. And I wanted to get not a Walkman, which is what we ended up getting, the sign equivalent of a Walkman, because it was non-digital. Like, you have to slap the letters up on it, old school. The zoning people would not let us do that in the city. And I was like, come on. So you make us get the equivalent of a Walkman, and I just want like an iPod. I don't even want like a fancy like iPhone. But we're stuck with the Walkman equivalent. But it's really nice. I think it's helped to educate people and also let them know what's going inside the building, and just another opportunity for communication, which is always great. But like I said, we had raised money for that. And so I think a digital version was going to be north of 20,000, and we had 15. And so I was like, we can get there. Like, let's do that. And that was something that I wanted to finish before I left the school. And so it ended up being only about 6. So they had some extra money. So that was nice. Especially then, because we had set that money aside. And then when the superintendent said that she wanted them for all the schools should have them, then we were like, sweet, what are we going to do with the money? So we ended up not being able to spend it before we left the building. But I think they're investigating like water bottle fillers, because I think that would be like really nice, especially in this area. We're starting school earlier. We used to go back like this week. So like last week of August, and this year they started August 17th. So, and it gets, hot here. Not like in Texas hot, but like Ohio hot, where we don't have air conditioning anywhere.
You know what? You talk about the water bottle fountains. I just had one of our franchisees in my company, School Spirit Vending, reach out to the Ohio team. He's out of the Columbus area, and evidently there's some program in Ohio that schools can apply for, and the state actually will pay for that transition.
Get out.
So remind me when we're done, and I'll find out. I'll find out the information, because several other of the franchisees in the state were like, "Man, let me know. We want to provide that information for our schools."
Heck yeah.
So
yeah, I wrote that down. I'm not going to forget. Yeah, and I'm just remembering, I never got to my good thing about fundraising. Can we jump back?
Yeah, cool? Go for it.
All right. So the one thing that I liked, especially when I'll be boastful, I picked a really good fundraising dude, because I actually interviewed them and made it be like, you have to impress me with what your plan is. And you can't just be coming in here and giving me your sales spiel and pulling out your catalog full of, I call it junkety junks. I mean, I think I've said that once before, but like, I'm not interested in junkety junks. Junkety junks is not readily available nor useful to a lot of families, especially in our district. So I wanted it to have a wide offering of things that people will actually use or buy for gifts. So like, if you want to have a product-based catalog, fine, but the stuff has to be quality. It can't be overpriced crap. Yeah. So like I had criteria that I was looking at for that I would go down my little checklist. And it wasn't like big, but it was like, is this stuff appealing? Would I buy it? Would I buy it? Like that's so, because people, you can't think about, well, yeah, people would buy this. No, no, no. Would you buy it? Because if you're not going to buy it, let me just tell you, other people who do not care about PTA stuff really as much as you do,
Right.
they're not going to buy it. So
Right.
you have to make sure that you would buy it. And so I found this guy and he was like a younger go-getter. He was about my age, right? And I was just like, I think he's hungry enough that he's going to like work for this and bring the energy that you need to get the lower elementary school kids excited. And so he came up with some, I thought they were innovative because we'd never done anything like this before. So it was a mixed program. We had magazines, some like chocolate, some jewelry, some products like that, because we always have to have cookie dough because for some reason that really goes in our district, or at our school rather. But then not so much the products, it was the unique incentives that we had with it. So for the magazines, if you brought in a completed magazine booklet, you know, with the postcards sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
if you brought it in with like the booklet completed, you got a ticket to the magic show. And the completed booklet was the only way that you could get into that magic show. And boy, did I have people trying to get in. And I had to have the principal go to bat for me and be like, no, you did not bring it. So you can't bring, you cannot bring your classmate who didn't bring it. Everyone has to bring it. This is the incentive. And that was really well intended. And then on top of that, we had one of the, it was like a mid-level prize. We did hamster wheel races where he like arranged to have this giant inflatable ball that one kid could get in. And they just like ran around the perimeter of the gym. It was nothing fancy, but the kids got to take their time, each got their turn rather. And they loved it because it was something different and unique. It wasn't just, imported plastic. It was really unique. So I personally enjoyed that. On the product side of it, I found this company, actually the fundraising chair before me found this, and we did it as a springtime fundraiser. We were not expecting to make very much from it. And we ended up we thought we would make around 3, like that was our goal. We made over 6 in the spring. And we were like, holy cannoli. So we repeated it every year until it went back down to like maybe 2 or 3. But I'm like, yeah, that got old and tired, but like it took 3 years to get there and we earned a chunk of change, The reason that went so well is because they were unique products that actually were functional because they were bags made from recycled materials. So, and now that company has grown, so it's not exclusively recycled materials, but they still have like a nice selection and they had especially like pool bags and stuff. So like during the summer, people would be like, where'd you get that cute pool bag? And we're like, such and such elementary school, we're going to do it again for a fundraiser. So watch out, pay attention, ask the people who go there. And we like pre-sold a lot of stuff, not technically, but just like brand awareness and, just awareness.
Right.
That one was really good.
So let's transition a little bit. Talk a little bit about your Facebook group, which is how I found you, and PTA, PTO, Superstar Leaders. Talk a little bit about that. When did you start that? And a little bit of the thought process behind it, because I'm amazed with the amount of people that are involved, that are engaged, that are asking questions, that are answering questions. It's really, really cool.
It is so fun. And it's been such a delight because it started off. So it all started back in December, like late December. So, my husband is a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. He's from Pittsburgh. So you're from Texas. So, there's no hate, but like in Cleveland, a bit of a thing, right? So I have to be careful who I tell. But he's a Pittsburgh sports fan. And the week before Thanksgiving, he broke his ankle and had to have surgery. And so I was the only person driving for 8 weeks, which was not fun because our oldest plays hockey. And so one thing that my family likes to do, because since they're boys, they just do their sports thing and I just don't. They wanted to go into Pittsburgh for a hockey game because they've done this for the last couple of years where they'll go to see the Penguins in Columbus and then they'll do the road trip back to Pittsburgh to see games back to back. And it's fantastic because I have time alone. Well, this year my husband couldn't drive and he was like right on the cusp of like, maybe I could do it. And I was like, do I really want you driving with my children in the wintertime right before Christmas? No, I do not. So I took them to Pittsburgh and sat in the hotel room with my laptop and created what everything has come to be. So that was the genesis, that I was alone in a hotel room 2 nights before Christmas.
Wow.
Because that's what I choose to do with my time. So, I was watching 2 Weeks Notice, I think, or You've Got Mail. No, it was You've Got Mail. I love those cheesy chick flicks. I was watching that, and that's when I started the group and started the accompanying blog, which is ptoanswers.blogspot.com, in case anyone's interested in checking that out. Because I kind of knew I wanted a group, because I guess the reason I started everything, I feel like the PTA, and I use PTA, PTO interchangeably, right? So I don't really mean to exclude any one group when I say either of those, but I really feel like they were underserved, or they are underserved. Not so much anymore, since I feel like I'm really doing a good job at providing what the experience of being a volunteer and a leader truly looks like today. Because I feel like the other options out there didn't speak to me as a volunteer and as a leader. They spoke more of like the business side of it, but not like, this is what it feels like, and this is what you really need to do. I feel like the advice out there isn't very much of it, and it was pretty vanilla, like really not putting a stake in the ground one way or the other of like what people should be doing and why they should be doing it. Like, I know there's going to be some people who don't agree with this, but there is for sure a right way to run a PTO and a wrong way. And I have no qualms with telling you, honey, you should not be doing that, So I felt like there was the need. So that's why I started the group, because I really, I wanted to create a community where people could come in and get those answers. Because when I was starting myself, I didn't have those answers, and I didn't have that guidance. And it doesn't have to be this hard. And so I want to be that solution for people, because it doesn't have to be that hard. This is supposed to be rewarding. It's supposed to be fun. And you've been in this realm for, a long time. How many people say that what they're doing is fun when it comes to PTA, PTO volunteering?
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome.
But it's supposed to be fun. I mean, they're dealing with kids. Come on. And people are far too serious. They take themselves too seriously, and they're too serious. It's like, it's just PTA stuff.
So I'm on the page right now. You've got 1,734 members, which is crazy, being that this has only been around for 9 months or so. You asked a question a couple of days ago. If you could have coffee with me for an hour, what questions would you ask that would be PTA or PTO related? And one of the questions you have here, or one of the questions asked that I'd love for you to talk about for a minute, is how do you get more parents vested and involved? Because I know that's a challenge that everybody faces.
Yeah, that's perhaps the biggest one of all, right? Because there's too few people doing the majority of the work. That leads to resentment, people being burnt out, and people getting catty and just nasty with each other, which they don't, that's not the way to be. And this solution, I was just, I did a Facebook Live. I do them like on Wednesdays, where I just pick a different topic and just like kind of talk. And as you can tell, I love to talk, and I have lots of ideas. And so I just kind of, it's like stream of consciousness, and I share things. But it was funny where I'm like, well, I'm saying the same thing, but it's really true. And it's true in answering the question that was posed there and that you asked me to answer. It's all about fun. If your group is not having fun, if people are not having fun in your group, then no one wants to be there with you. Because we all have jobs. This is not like anybody is getting paid to do this. I mean, I'm getting paid to do this because I develop products to help people. So I am making money off of this. But for the majority of my experience the totality of my experience is a volunteer. I was giving of my time. I was missing out on things with my kids and my family because I knew that I could help them better in a different way. So yeah, that's my number one recommendation. And then people always go, okay, well then, like, what does that look like? Having a group being fun means being respectful of people's time. So like the meetings that go on and on and on and on and on, you cannot have that. You have to really limit meetings to an hour. I would say if it's like an event planning meeting, well, okay, then that probably will talk, you'll have to talk about things more for than an hour because you're getting into like the nitty gritty of the details, hashing it out and making sure you have everything accounted for. But for like a general PTA meeting, with the exception of the first one of the year, if you're doing it, if they're lasting over an hour to an hour and 15, you're doing something wrong. Like you're not following an agenda. Maybe you don't have an agenda. You're not like a written agenda. I mean, not just like a general plan. You're not following your agenda. There are side conversations. You're not having people on the same page as here just to give your like soapbox speech about why you feel it's important to trying to think of something. Oh my God. I'm just remembering the one time I got so frustrated. People were like trying to figure out what to serve for breakfast at a special person's breakfast. And I about lost my mind because they were trying to have like a hot breakfast and have all these different stations. And I looked at people and I said, we are not in the food service business. Like that is not what we are doing. We are trying to create an opportunity where people come. If we get donuts and bagels, I really don't care. Like that's what we need to be doing. We're not a restaurant on, catering. This is crazy. And because so many groups, I think, fall into this trap of like wanting to really take it up to the next level, but then it transforms their group into something entirely different that's out of their skill set. And then it doesn't always go well. And then they feel bad because it was a disaster and people get mad at each other. And it's just like a giant train wreck. So yeah, and I got off the path there, but I'll just bring it back that it needs to be fun. And so you don't need to be starting another business with your event. Like you need to make it fun for you, make it fun for the kids. And then people will, they'll be attracted to that. I was part of the strategic planning committee for my district. And I guess it was like 5 years ago because I saw the superintendent at a board meeting recently and she's like, oh, it's time to like redo different parts of that. And I was like, really? That was my first thing. I was like, really? It's been that long. And two, how do I get in on that? Because I said, I want to be a part of this. And she goes, oh, I knew. Through the strategic planning process, they brought in facilitators. And here's a YouTube video for people to go look up. And I talked about it in a blog post not too long ago. It's called First Followers. Like if you go and search that. And basically what it is, when people see it, it's this guy on this hill at a music festival. And he just gets out there in like an open field. You're nodding, so you've seen it. Yeah. So he gets out there and he's like, just starts jamming and dancing and everything. And he's all by himself. And everyone's just kind of like looking at him. And he's just like not caring. He's feeling music. He's totally into it. And then all of a sudden, one or two people go with him. And then it's not too long before like everybody goes. And then they're all just like partying and just really enjoying themselves. And that is what PTAs need to be trying to do. Setting an example of having fun and then other people will come. And the one thing that I always did, as you can tell, I'm very shy and very, an introvert. I have trouble connecting with people, but I would capitalize on my outgoingness. And I would just go up to people that I didn't know, but like, because you don't want to be like harassing people that clearly don't want any part of you. But like, usually people will make eye contact and you can go, hey, what's going on? Like I would talk to people at the pickup line, in the pickup line or the pickup area at the flagpole that weren't necessarily friends. I casually knew because then I knew when I needed something, I could be like, hey, so like we need another car to, decorate and hand out treats at trick or treat. Would you be interested? Well, because I've had a prior conversation with them, they're much more likely to say, why, yes, I would. And I also did this. I have one friend, and she's like, well, you kind of scared me into coming to the PTA meeting. Because I said to people, the meeting, they'll be like, we're giving out like cookies at like the back to school night. And so I give people a cookie. I go, but you're only getting this cookie if you come to the PTA meeting, which is next Thursday at 6 p.m. in the library. And they would like laugh at me. And I go, oh, I'm serious. So they would look at me again, like, oh my God, this lady's like off her rocker. And I'd say, I'm totally joking, but I'm not. So like, I will see you there. And sure enough, I got someone to come like that. And then she was like an involved volunteer for like the next 5 years. And for as long as her kids were in the building, and she credited me with getting her involved. And she's like, my life is totally different because you harassed sort of me, scared me into coming, but it was all in good fun. Right.
Right.
So I think that's where like the fun has to start, where you can joke with people, because the other thing I always love to do, and sometimes people think, I guess I'm good at being like for real, fake serious, but they think I'm serious. So they'd be like, well, what's involved? And I'm like, okay, well, the third Thursday of the month, we do our blood donations. So you're going to want to be prepared for that. And their like face goes, what? And I'm like, well, don't you know, PTAs are like blood sucking organizations. They suck everything out of you. And that's always a good one.
Holy smokes, guys. Just so you guys know, we now know how Christina got 1,734 followers on her Facebook group. I guess I came voluntarily, so she didn't have to give me a hard time like some of the others. No, just kidding. So let me ask you one more of these questions real quick, and then we'll work towards wrapping things up here in a minute. One of the ladies here, Stacy, asks, what methods of communication do you find you get the best responses from parents and teachers? Emails, social media posts, newsletters, home, etc. What have you found is the best way to communicate in the schools that you've been in?
Short and clear. People do not have time. People do not have time to be reading really long emails. So short emails that are to the point. One thing I did, I was in charge of the family events last year for the last 2 years at the lower elementary school. And I actually used Evite, and I just made it into a party. Like anything, I would just invite people, and it helped me because I didn't need to be worrying about, emailing people. We, as a group, we did use a group email system. And now I don't think if PTO leaders don't have a business, I'm not sure that they would understand that you really can't use like Gmail or Hotmail to be mass emailing everybody, that like, it's just not going to get through because Gmail doesn't, it's for personal use really. And so that they need to go like, and not make a huge investment. There are certainly inexpensive and free options out there. So my school uses the free email or inexpensive email solutions for them. But then on top of that, I would do the Evite because I found like it was semi unconventional. Like people know what Evite is. And I really liked it because it gave me a good idea of who was opening things, because you can see like when they looked at the invitation, and who was coming. And it didn't always translate into like exactly, but it would just ballpark it for me. And so that was like super helpful for like getting supplies and like making sure I had enough, but not too much, because you don't want to like waste all your money and then not have people show up and then go, oh, you have all this like wasted food. And that's why one of the reasons why I don't like to do events with food. I like to do things that are like stable. So if it is food, it's going to be something packaged that at the very least I can give it out and make it part of like the teacher appreciation luncheon or something like that. I'm like pretty good at like reusing things. So I would say email for sure. Facebook is hard because, as a business owner, I'm sure you know that organic reach is like, because they want you to be paying to get the stuff in front of them. So I guess I would still go with email. I know that our district at the two different schools, they're using Class Dojo at one building and then Remind at another building. And we, I think, used remind at the lower elementary school last year. I didn't sign up for the text alerts because text alerts kind of bug me. It's like, I don't like my phone dinging all the time because, again, I'm sure this will surprise you. I get distracted by like shiny objects. And so if my phone is dinging, then it's getting me off of track of what I need to be doing and need to be working on. So I prefer not to have text alerts like that.
So we've talked about the Facebook page. What are a couple of resources that you've put together that you have found have been really, really valuable, aside from the group itself and the interaction there, that people can be made aware of that you've got, and then let them know where they can actually find the group and how they can join, that type of thing?
Okay. So the one thing that I have found that all groups struggle with almost universally, and maybe it's not right now, but maybe it's the recent past, or maybe they'll encounter it soon, is really, we referred to it earlier, parent engagement. Like just not enough people tuned into what is going on. And so I've put together it's not a checklist. It's just like, it's a list of 9 different tools that are all free that I don't think most PTAs or PTOs know about. But they all hone in on how to get people engaged, how to get parents engaged, whether it's communication, whether it's promotion, because I think a lot of times PTOs rely on the if I build it, they will come mentality, which is not true because people are busy and it's not that people don't care. They have so much going on that they're also caring about this and this and this and this. So you really have to promote accurately. And that is that not very many leaders have. Because if they do have it, they're probably still working at like a marketing firm or something. So that is a great list of tools to use, and people can snag that at bit.ly /PTO Tools. So it's bit.ly/PTO Tools. And the PTO is capitalized because I did it bad and didn't know that bit.ly was case sensitive. So it's bit.ly/PTO Tools with PTO capitalized. So that's been my big sin of late, making that difficult. And then as far as the Facebook group, that's been such a blessing for that. I think I just looked at my stats because they have new like insights where you can see had 58% growth in the last 28 days. That's great. I mean, part of that is time of the year, but a lot of it is because there's some really good content in there, and there is some really good information and community in there where people know that they can get like an honest to good answer. And I spent quite a bit of time in there, not so much lately because I had in real life, I'm a professional organizer. So I had a huge job for a professional athlete, actually, if I can be humble bragging a little bit, a couple weeks ago. So that took up a lot of time. So I haven't been in there as much, but I generally try and hit on the questions that people consistently have and give them like a real answer. So people can join the group by going to facebook.com /groups/PTO leaders. So, or by searching, that's the direct URL that'll take you there. Or the name of the group is PTA/PTO Superstar Leaders, because who doesn't want to be a superstar?
Guys, if you haven't learned a ton from Christy here in the last little bit, you need to listen to this episode again because it's been incredible. So, Christy, thank you very much for hopping on and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with the group. I'm looking forward to helping you grow your community even more. And folks, for sure, go and check out some of the tools and that type of thing at bit.ly/P_T_O Tools as well. We'll have all this stuff in the show notes, etc. But Christy, thank you for taking your time to enter the school zone. We'll look forward to chatting with you on the Facebook page and with a bunch of our listeners as well.
Thanks so much, Matt. I really enjoyed this time.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the School Zone's School Fundraising Ideas Podcast and for simplifying the search. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. When you do, please leave us a 5-star review in iTunes or your podcast player of choice. Victor Hugo once wrote, "To learn to read is to light a fire. Every syllable that is spelled out is a spark." Wouldn't you agree that readers are thinkers, and readers and thinkers change the world? That's why we offer Marlin and Percy, good and wholesome reading for kids from 4 to 13. Marlin and Percy comics and graphic novels follow the adventures of 2 superhero apes and best friends as they fight crime rings, subdue wacky villains, and overthrow half-baked plans of world domination. Marlin and Percy are also fighting with you against another deadly villain, illiteracy. Scattered throughout the clean and wholesome content are vocabulary-increasing words with definitions. Marlin and Percy comics and our novel can be found on Amazon or marlinandpercy.com. Save $9 now on the 7-comic ebook bundle at marlinandpercy.com. Just use the code APEPOWER. Marlin and Percy, heroes, best friends, apes. Order your books now